Now to begin, I need to remove the landscaping fabric that I had down in this area, and of course rescue every earthworm I see. And if you are fearful about using landscaping fabric, no worries, the earthworms are safe below and above. That's fine. But what I found is they make tunnels and use this like a roof. I like to pull the landscaping fabric up and can basically go earthworm hunting, because they have a whole little like network underneath. And then the ones who find their way on top just live on top in between the gravel. Now when you lay landscaping fabric down like this, you might have to give it a little oomph to get it back up. But once we got that going, I got Fire to come in and help me start digging. Thank goodness for my wonderful husband, Fire. He helped me get this process started that day. And as you can see, we're digging out a hole. It's going to be about 2 feet deep. Citrus need good drainage, and that's one of the keys to being successful with growing citrus in deep, dense clay. You want to dig it out to where that water can drain and have a place to go and not be around the roots. So for my soil mixture, I used a modified version of what I usually do in my raised beds and my potted plants, and switched just a couple of things around and added a couple of things to fit the citrus's needs. The first thing, I used 3 bags of good quality topsoil. You can find that at different places, but I always like to use a good topsoil that's not too clay-like and clumped together. That's what I'm already dealing with in the yard. So I like to use a topsoil that's crumbly but looks rich and healthy. So after I add my topsoil, I come next with a bag of soil conditioner. If you look at any type of fruit tree that you buy from a nursery, you find that there's a lot of pieces of wood bark and everything, and that pretty much mimics what you find in soil conditioner to me. And citrus like a little bit of acidity, so I wasn't too concerned with adding that in there. And like I said, you wanted the mixture to be not dense but loose and crumbly, so those roots won't get suffocated in the soil that you're putting them in. Now once I had my topsoil and my soil conditioner in the ditch that we dug out, I started mixing it around because it's going to come in layers what I'm adding to it. So I wanted to try to at least save myself some work on the back end and just mix it in as I go. Next, you're going to add in your perlite and your vermiculite. Perlite basically helps you the water drain. I add enough of that to where I'm satisfied to where it looks like something I would buy in a big box store as far as potting mix. Roughly about 1 gallon or 2, but mix in at your will. You wanted to have enough drainage for that citrus and so that water won't sit around the roots. But I also add a little bit of vermiculite, just a couple of little scoops full of that. That holds moisture. You want drainage, but you don't want the water to run off of the roots of the citrus before it can actually drink something. So I add just a little bit of vermiculite. And when you're doing this, be sure to wear a mask. This stuff gets in the air and gets dusty, and you don't want to be breathing that in. And finally, you want to add your peat moss. Like I've said before in other videos, it's not a problem here as far as getting peat moss here in the States. It's sourced, I believe, coming out of Canada. But as far as a soil amendment, it's up to you. If you want to use coco coir, you can use coco coir. That's a good one as well. But for me and the volume that I'm doing, peat moss is definitely a must, especially with 2 big raised beds that are dug out underneath. So and it gets clumped together, so try to break it up the best that you can. And the last step is to mix in the sand that you're putting in the pit area that you're going to have underneath the raised beds. You'll want to just try to pour it all over the top. And like I told you earlier, I used 2 bags. We're also going to use some more in the actual raised bed, but you want to put some down here to continue that good drainage. And once you have all your ingredients in the pit area, you want to start your mixing. And I recommend getting some type of pitchfork. You can use a shovel or a hoe, but I love this little pitchfork that I got from one of the big box stores. It helps me mix even things in the pot. It's definitely worth the investment, and it's handy, so you can just get in there and mix it well. So after you're done with your raised beds, at least the bottom portion, and amending all the soil and getting your soil mixture together, you'll want to move on to the actual soil being put in the raised beds. As you can see here, I got the raised beds already in place. I found some cute ones on Amazon, but you know, that's up to you where you get your raised beds. I prefer metal ones, and I got some small ones and just kind of butted them together, and then started adding the same soil mixture that I put in the dugout area into the top raised bed area. So basically 3 bags, I believe it was, of topsoil, 1 bag of soil conditioner. It's basically a nice size bag, so really all you need is 1 bag, and the same amendments: perlite, vermiculite, and sand, all mixed into the actual raised beds where the citrus trees are gonna go. And here's what you want your soil to look like, or a citrus mix, I should say, for your citrus plants. Just a nice mix of everything, just like something you would buy in the store. Take a look at that. I pretty much got it just the way I wanted, to where you can see everything mixed in there. Just ensure that it has good drainage going on. And now that I have my soil the way I want and all amended, it's time to put in my citrus. And when you start this process, if it's a large citrus tree coming out of a pot, you want to make sure to knock it all around and loosen that root ball up, and then pull it out from the base. You don't want to break your beautiful plant at this point in the game. First one down. 3 more to go. Now, if your citrus tree has been in a pot for a while, don't forget to fluff out those roots. If you don't, they'll just continue to grow in a circular direction instead of spreading out where you've just put all that lovely soil. Now, once I got that mijo planted, it was on and popping with the rest of them. So as you can see here, do the same technique. You want to hit the outside of that pot to make sure to loosen up the root ball so it'll come out easily. And so you won't damage any roots, and then grab it firmly by the very bottom of the base or trunk of the tree or bush that you can. You want to make sure you cause minimum damage when you're pulling it out of these pots. And fluff those roots. Make sure, because sometimes they will get wound all around the pot and everything, so fluff those roots out, so once you get it in the hole, the roots can go on out and grow on in the hole that you dug for them. Now, one more point I want to bring up before you decide to plant your citrus in ground. If you're not in a subtropical or tropical area, make sure that citrus has some age on it. The way you do that is by looking at the trunk of the tree or bush. When it starts to brown and start to actually look like a tree you see out in nature, that's when you can think about planting your citrus in ground. That age will also give it protection, along with greenhouses, incandescent Christmas lights, or frost cloth. For the citrus I've been working with these and growing them outside and kind of taking them to the limits and seeing how far I can take them for 3 years now. Over that time, the trunk has turned brown and gotten thicker and bigger. And I've also talked to some people in forums who grow citrus in Georgia and listened to what they have to say before I made this decision to put them in ground. So here are the end results. An in-ground citrus bed in Georgia. People said it couldn't be done. I'm doing it. It is what we've discovered so far, and I did a test run on my smaller citrus, like the kumquats and the calamandan, who are more, not so temperamental. They're doing good. They had a little bit of transplant shock, but they're doing good. I'm going to show you those in a minute. But we got it done. Like I told y'all, we dug this out and showed you. We dug this out and put the citrus in raised beds so they wouldn't have their feet wet. So, if we do have water coming down the hill, they won't have their feet sopping wet. They'll be up enough out of the red Georgia clay and in the raised bed high enough to where they can, get dried out. But still put the cabbage down in the dirt so they can get enough water. Now, if you want to come a little closer, Fire, I'll show you exactly another trick I did too. As you can see, they're a little bit higher up than the raised bed. I'm going to make sure that water drains down. So I kind of planted all of them a little bit higher up. Eventually, they're going to sink down as that dirt settles. But you want to make sure you plant your citrus at a little bit of more of an elevated level, even in the raised beds, so that water can just drain on down. Another part that I have here in the citrus bed, I added some herbs to keep the bugs away. We got some variegated sage and some thyme. Eventually, I'm going to get some marigolds and some dill in here. Dill is a really, really, really good bug deterrent as well. But here it is. I got some still trimming to do, but they're in the ground, and so far so good. Wish I could have got this to y'all yesterday, but we ran out of daylight. But this is what we're doing now. As far as maintenance, I'm gonna do the same thing I usually do. Feed them a couple of times a year. Give them some coffee grounds. They've been happy with that thus far. I already have blooms going on and actually a little bit of fruit going on. I'm probably going to pick the beginning fruit off just so it can focus on root growth and not fruit production. But I'm super happy about getting these in the ground and not necessarily having to thin them out or whatever because they're in pots. It can be done in Georgia. You just have to watch your plant, know what to do, give it some time, let it age, and in the wintertime, cover it with the greenhouses right behind us. That small greenhouse is going to go directly over the citrus bed or these citrus beds. And what I'm famous for is the Christmas lights, incandescent Christmas lights. And if need be, a second plastic layer. Cover them on up. And here's some footage of the first bed that we dug out and did for the citrus. And as I told you earlier, the lights went on it immediately because we had a cold snap right after. But I really prefer this method because once the lights went on and they were able to just focus on their roots, and then once spring and summer hit, they didn't get any type of heat damage or transplant shock. This is our citrus bed in the ground. I decided, like I was telling y'all in the video, we took it down a couple of feet just to make sure the citrus had good drainage. This is the one that's been in the ground the longest, and so they're doing really well. We got these in before spring, It was actually in the middle of winter pretty much when we got this bed put in, and then protected it a lot. So they're doing really well. The next one we did over here, they went through some transplant shock. I didn't take the blossoms. When I transferred them into the beds over here, they were happy at first, but they went through a lot of transplant shock because they were full of blossoms and buds and used to being in the pots. And I didn't get those blossoms off in time enough. So, but we're nursing them back to health. They're still doing good. The whole concept is working as far as putting the citrus in the ground and giving the water somewhere to drain by digging that pit underneath. And as you can see here, I have the Florida sunflowers popping up everywhere. That's another one. Once you get them in the yard, they reseed themselves. I didn't plant any of these. They just pop up where they want to, and I let them. I love them. I love the way they look. And we still got our herbs around the citrus and lemon verbena and the onion, green onions that help somewhat with bugs and everything. I like to try to do stuff the natural way.
So if you have any questions about more about my technique or what I went through doing this, or want some suggestions or have any questions, put them in the comments below.